Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast, and we have a busy week on our hands. And to talk all about it, it's me, Jeremy Warner, Illini Inquirer publisher, and Joey Wagner, Illini Inquirer beat writer. And Joey, a big day for Bret Bielema. We got a big day for Brad Underwood coming up. Usually this is the slow time, man. We're like begging for Big Ten media days. That is certainly not the case right now.
I saw this coming like in the first week of July. I was like, okay, this is about to – no, I didn't see the commitments coming, but as the schedule started lining out with the basketball tournament and media days, it's like, oh, man, it's back. Like the grind is back. And for us, it's like back because there's traveling and it's going to be really fun and just a big wave to ride into that busy time. This has been a really kind of unexpectedly crazy week, I guess, but it's answering a lot of questions we had.
Yeah, big commitment, of course, Jaden Epps, top 100 point guard, combo guard for Illinois. He can get buckets. We talked about that with Derek yesterday. And then Illinois football follows that up with a huge commitment, Joey. Aiden Lawfrey, a 3-star running back, a top 20 prospect, really, really good prospect, Power 5 prospect, had offers from Michigan State. Of course, Iowa, Illinois beats out here, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Minnesota was in on it. Washington State was in on him. Just a really good get, and most importantly, a kid from 30 minutes up the road at Gibson City, Melvin Sibley. But 8 in-state commitments already for Bret Bielema. Lovie Smith had 9 in his first class, and that ended up being really good for him. Some of the in-staters didn't work out, and some of them, like Bret Bielema, they were kind of evaluations. We'll see how good some of those guys are. But Lawfrey, Jordan Anderson, those are top 20 guys. Ian Pugh and Jared Beatty, those are top 20 in-state kids. That's where we really thought Bret Bielema could improve in-state recruiting, or we've thought Illinois could live in in-state recruiting. So before we get into the Lawfrey thing, it's just been a really solid start, obviously, for in-state recruiting. I think this one was really a statement, locking up the best Central Illinois prospect. Like Hank Beatty's good, Clayton Leonard's got some potential, but Aiden Lawfrey, when it came to Power 5 schools, he was the most wanted kid in Central Illinois. Of course, Austin Brown, they weren't able to get a 4-star out of Southern Illinois, but this is a nice big get and a really encouraging sign for Bret Bielema.
Yeah, it's every message that Bret has tried to put out there. He's backing it up now with the commitments. And Jeremy, I did some research. I don't know when I'll ever write it, so we'll put it out here. I thought 10 to 30. Obviously, that's going to fluctuate a little bit with how good the state is. But I think that is an area that Bret can really build a good foundation of his football team. If you dominate that area, that's not saying take every 10 to 30 kid, but it's to really
you're saying, just to interrupt, you're saying kids ranked 10 to 30 in the state.
Yep, in the 24/7 composite. So if you can get, and that's what he's done. He's got 8 players in that ranking, all 8 this year. That's where some of the foundations can be. And then when you get, ideally, if you're Bret, you win football games. And then you start landing a couple of those 1 to 9 kids and you start hitting, some of those ranking home runs, not necessarily the guys who you think, are still very, very good players. So this year they've got 8, right? In the last 5 recruiting cycles, which basically is the Lovie's first class, they had 10 total. Out of 104, one kid committed to Oklahoma State several years ago. Actually ended up leaving the country. I don't even think he played football anymore. So 104 players, they got 10. That was not even the best in the Big Ten.
And they got 8 of 20 right now in this one class.
Yeah, so you can see, and look, this does have, to Lovie's credit, this does have some 2017 vibes to it, that first class of Lovie. But frankly, in terms of the ratings, Lovie had some bigger fish in that class, right? There was a Ricky Smalling, I believe, was 6. Kendrick Green was 9.
Can I go back to that class?
Yeah.
Because I love that class. And I think you go back and if people look at the 2017 recruiting class for Lovie Smith, a lot of them are still here because of the super senior rule. That ended up being a very good class. But if you just look at recruiting wise, I mean, Ricky Smalling, I know he didn't finish out his career and, didn't quite, continue the momentum he had from a great freshman year, but he's a good Big Ten player, and he was number 6 in the Big Ten rankings. Then you had Kendrick Green, who's a monster get. So Lovey actually was ahead of Bielema when it comes to getting those top 10 kids. But I know the off the field stuff of Lure Oladipo, that was a huge recruiting win, kind of like Lawfrey, kind of like Jared Beatty. Kendall Smith was a solid in-state, get good athlete. Jaleel Martin's kind of a similar prospect if Illinois is able to get him. But then some of the evaluations they made, Vidarian Lowe, what a hit that was for Luke Buckus and Lovie Smith. Alex Palczewski, what a steal that was. And then you had kids like Mark Mondesir, Cam Thomas. Those were athletes who could you turn them into football players. Mark Mondesir still contributing. I think that was still a solid program player. Obviously, Cam Thomas did not work out. James Knight got hurt, and that was a little bit of a stretch of a get there. But that's a really good in-state class that really set the foundation for Lovie Smith. And then he just completely changed courses. He changed recruiting coordinators and went the opposite way and said, in-state, I'll go hard for a couple kids every year, but I'm not going to go hard for all of them. And I think that was a huge mistake for Lovie Smith because that class ended up being really good. I mean, they had really good players. Delshawn Phillips was a JUCO player in that one. Tony Adams, Mike Epstein, Lou Dorsey at the time, what a get he was. Rayvon Bonner was good. And then you go to Nate Hobbs. And of course, Bobby Roundtree was a huge get for them at the time. So ended up being Isaiah Gay, that Owen Carney, like that's a really good recruiting class. And then you just kind of change course, but in state, like that's what you should try and get every year is 8 or 9 kids and 5 or 6 of them can really work out for you.
And that's what I think we're seeing. That is what we're seeing with what Bret is doing with his first recruiting class. And, I guess all we can say is we'll see if this continues in 2 to 3 kids. I mean, we don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that it will continue and this effort will continue. But that there is, I think it's sometimes when coaches get hired and they do the whole in-state, we'll do this, that, and the other, it gets a little tired. But if you go back and historically look, when it's been a priority, it's worked out and, pretty well for them. Again, not everyone's going to be a hit, Jeremy. That's clear. In every recruiting class, in every ranking, there's 5 stars that don't hit. But you want to give yourself a fighter's chance and you want to maintain those relationships.
Yeah, and sometimes the state isn't that great. And I would agree that a Texas or a Florida kid who's a 3-star might be a little bit better than an Illinois kid who's a 3-star, and that's not true of them all, right? But there's just more of them. But you still got to get those kids. And that's where Lovie struggled. He wasn't getting the best out of Texas or the best out of Florida. He was kind of getting the leftovers there, and some of them work out and some of them did. So you better be sure, because I just don't think you can abandon the state. I think as the flagship school, you have to recruit the state. And I just think if you don't, you're not going to get many of them. And Lovie Smith found that out, because if you try and cherry pick it all, you don't have those relationships. Like, you want to be honest, you're not going to take everybody. And some classes aren't going to be that great. Maybe they'll only get 4 guys in state, but if you recruit kids in state, more of them will piggyback off it. Right. And we're seeing that now. Like, these in-state kids know each other. They are friends with each other. They go to camps and compete against each other. They play against each other on the field, and it's just more comfortable. So I know we've always gone over that, but Bret Bielema is following it up and he's backing it up. And I agree. I don't think he'll change like Lovie did. I think he's going to say this is because he did it at Wisconsin, right? And Arkansas is not a great state for in-state recruiting, but he did it at Wisconsin and it paid off greatly for him.
And I also wonder, like, how many strikes until you're out, right? Like, because some of these high school coaches, through no fault of Bret, have heard the whole "we'll be here" and then you're there until you're not there. And I just don't know that Bret's got, and again, I don't think he's going to change course, but I don't think he's got a very long window. If he's not there at some point, it's going to be like, okay, we've seen this before. And it's the same story we've always heard. So really a long-winded way of saying it's a heck of a way for him in state-wise to put his foot down and really establish and back up what he said he was going to do. And there are, in this class, there are some good out-of-state commitments, right? We think Joey Okla is good. We think Hunter Whiteneck's good. Donovan Leary's, obviously everybody wants to see the quarterback. Owen Anderson, those guys outside of the state of Illinois. But when you look in here, Pugh, Beatty, Lawfrey, those are huge, huge commitments for him. And he really, in a short time, he's really made some headway in this.
Yeah. And, 2023, we'll see what that class ends up looking like. There's not a lot of rankings out there. A lot of these guys don't have a lot of games. to show, but they've already offered a couple kids, Roderick Pierce, Austin Barrett, Malik Elzy. The big one for me next class is Caden Fagan, out of Arthur, Illinois. Like, that is your area. You got in first. It's going to be really interesting to watch that and just how the next class develops. But I think getting a great first in-state class and then pushing the pedal hard on the second class is going to be really interesting to watch. All right, Aiden Lawfrey, let's break this down. Joey, I think this is the biggest recruiting win they've gotten in this class. I don't know if Lawfrey's the best prospect in this class. He's not ranked to that, but I think this is the best recruiting win in the class. And I'll tell you why, because Jared Beatty is a good win. From what I understand, Michigan State and Minnesota weren't pushing as hard as Illinois, and Tennessee, I think, wasn't pushing as hard. So Illinois pushed the pedal to the metal, and they got him. That's a good win. Ian Pugh, you're going with Iowa on that one. Cincinnati, you flipped him. Great recruiting win. I'm not going to, knock that, but Iowa was going hard after Jacob Bostic as well, and they just wanted one of Bostic or Pugh. This one was a head-to-head win against Bret Bielema's alma mater, against a way better program, a program that had a bigger need at running back and potentially easier sell at running back, and they wanted 2 running backs, and they have none right now in this class. This is Bret Bielema going head-to-head against Kirk Ferentz, one of his mentors, one of his former employers, and obviously his alma mater, and he just beat him. He just beat him in a recruitment, and I talked with Aiden afterwards, and yeah, sure, being closer to home helped, I think, a little bit in this one, but he said it was just the coaches. He said he had a better feeling, the family thing. He said, I know this is cheesy, but it was just different. I felt comfortable with those guys that it didn't have anywhere else, even though after every official visit, right, you feel like, he said, you feel like you want to commit to that place right after every official visit. But he said he just felt different with Illinois and that he could see himself at Illinois no matter who was there. But he said this coaching staff really won him over because they felt natural for him. And that seems to be a thing we hear over and over again, that I know family, it's kind of hokey, but everyone says it's true and it's working for him. So I think it's a huge staff effort. Like he said, I don't even know who to call my lead recruiter because they were all involved. And as you and I know, that wasn't the case on the last staff.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that. I would say arguably more times than not with this coaching staff is this one's probably way further out there because you're right. Like I would say Corey is the lead recruiter, Corey Patterson, the running backs coach, but I don't say that with a ton of confidence because there are so many guys. And we've seen Bart Miller take the lead on some linemen, but then it's like once they sense that door is open a little bit, every coach just flocks through and tries to get it. And we've seen when they really lock in on a target, they go. And outside of Austin Brown, I would say, and look, they're going to miss on targets, man. That happens. But if you have a pretty good hit rate, I would say, that's something you can hang your hat on a little bit. But I'll also add, Jeremy, especially with Aiden, if you look back and you read the reports that were coming out of Iowa City, and there were 2 crystal balls for Iowa. Like after that official visit, there seemed to be some serious momentum, and we thought that could happen, right? He took his first visit to Illinois early on in June, the first weekend. Washington State was in there, then Iowa got a chance to close this here and be the last official. And there was there was smoke coming out of there, right? I mean, there seemed to be a thought that could maybe be where he landed. And I saw, first of all, also WCI did an outstanding job hosting his commitment announcement. That was just really well done all around. And he told Marley Weirday, he said, hey, Saturday I had a conversation with Bret Bielema, and that really was kind of the cherry on top. I understood it, and it's a big deal, man. You're right. He beat Kirk Ferentz head to head, and they really had to work for it, but they won it.
Yeah, Aiden said he made the call to Bielema to commit on Saturday, and he was just going to tweet it out. But Mike Allen at GCMS, I mean, this is a big deal for that small town, and I have a little bit of history there. I used to cover Paxton. I used to be at the Paxton Record, the sports editor there. It was my first job out of college, and I learned a lot in my 2 years there, and I covered GCMS, who made some playoff runs, and Aiden Lawfrey probably would have been a fifth or sixth grader at the time, or probably third or fourth grade actually at that time. And they made a run to state, and he was watching those guys. And now Aiden's that guy in that small town that these kids all got to see commit to Illinois on television. Like, that was really cool. And I was happy there was no like hat fake even for Iowa, even though Illinois fans, Lawfrey would have gone down in like history for that. Like, I always think that's a mistake. You don't want to burn too many bridges. Just celebrate the school you pick. So I thought that was pretty classy by Aiden, but it was a big deal for that small town. Anybody who's been in a small town, I grew up in a small town, just like Aiden, like to see somebody, obviously he's blessed athletically. He's one of the fastest dudes in the state, but to see that somebody like that can come out of your town was really, really, really cool. But that's also the kind of recruitment Bret Bielema needs to win. Like, you can't lose somebody within an hour or two radius, really, to me, from that kind of program. Like, that's got to be your spot where you put the fence around. Like, you're not going to put the fence around Chicago. There's not enough allegiance out there. There's too many people drink from that water. But there's a kid in Tuscola a couple of years ago, Hunter Woodard. You got to land that kid, right? Or if there's a kid coming out of Marola like Jack Hockaday, you got to land that kid. Or Rochester like Hank Beatty. Now, Austin Brown's a little bit different. If it's a 4 or 5-star kid, maybe it's going to be a little bit different. And I got to tell you, Illinois felt pretty good about Austin Brown going into that final day. And they were a little surprised that he picked Wisconsin, but you understand it's Wisconsin. It's Jim Leonard, who could be your Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator if he wanted to, but he just loves Wisconsin, right? So, like, I get why he would want to pick that, but I think it's really encouraging that maybe the next Nick Broker, Illinois is going to have a real shot at, or maybe the next Kendrick Green, Illinois is going to have a real shot at. Joey, like, Lovey was able to land him, but he wasn't able to follow it up with the guys like JJ Gaudet or Nick Broker, or Albert O, who went to Missouri. Like, those are the guys you got to land in your backyard.
It's funny you say Albert O. I saw him on Saturday, just a monster of a human being, just absolutely large. And I thought that is exactly what I thought. I thought, there's no way I can imagine a tight end in the state of Illinois getting out of the state of Illinois if Bret's the coach. And maybe I was just kind of caught up in being so entrenched in watching these recruiting battles. But you're right. There are some losses that are hard to explain. And I think at this point, if what we've seen in this class is you can explain away the loss, right? Like, you can explain, like, hey, Jim Leonard, that's got an explanation to be, to say, or, Danny McGuire goes to Northwestern, Deuce McGuire, hey, you can explain that, but there's some losses that it's like, in the past 5 recruiting cycles, like, really, I don't know that I understand that one. And look, I mean, there's a lot of ball game left in the Bret Bielema tenure, man. I'm sure in however many cycles we're going to look at this and say, how? That's because that's just what happens in recruiting, right? But it's a huge win, Jeremy. I mean, this is a really big win, and wow.
And, yeah, let's break that down, because Aiden is a really good football player, just a really good football player with almost near. And I don't want to use the term elite all the time, like some coach does, but like, you could call his speed elite for a high school prospect. Maybe not top 247 elite, where he's running a 10.3 100, but he ran a 10.58 100 this spring, and he had a bad hammy. So this is one of the fastest kids in the state. If he wouldn't have had that hamstring injury, he darn near probably would have won state in the 100 meters. And an interesting thing is Bret Bielema is encouraging him to run track at Illinois, and that helped Illinois a little bit as well. And Aiden's very interested in that, and Bret wants him to do it just because, hey, if you're around fast people getting faster, that's good for me too. So there would obviously be a balance of that with spring ball and all that. But I love that he would do that. Like, Marquez Beeson has thought of that in the past. So I think that would be really interesting to see, but that's legit speed. And he also has power though to his game. He's about 5'11", 185. And anybody who knows the GCMS program, and I think of the Wilmington football program, because that's what I grew up here in the Interstate 8 conference, former Interstate 8 conference. Like, it's just, they have this strength program that is great. They have this youth program that is great. So he is ready for what mostly ready for what a tank right program will be, or what a real kind of football program will be, because it's just a great high school football program that preps these guys. I mean, we see Bryce Barnes make an impact at the Big Ten level. Mitch McNutt, if he didn't want to get into weightlifting like he did, he was going to play special teams his true freshman year as a walk-on. So there's really good players that come out of that program, but Aiden is the fastest. He's the most athletic. He's got quick cut ability. And I think he could be a really good running back. He's in the mold of a Reggie Love. He's in the mold of a Dre Brown that can do a little bit of everything. But I also think he could be a safety eventually if they wanted to put him there. He's fast enough. He's physical enough. He's just a really good football player with legit Power 5 speed.
Yeah, and I'll say they push for him at a position that is pretty well accounted for over the course of the next 2 years, 3 years, and he's going to go into a running. And look, that was a sell that Iowa was. Again, they go and they get him at this position, and Iowa was selling like, hey, we don't have that running back room, man. Like it, so they locked it up.
Weird, right? Like Illinois can sell, or Iowa can sell more playing time at running back than Illinois, right?
Yeah, what a world. But to get him and to push and still do that, and you're right. I mean, I think there is some intrigue. Could they use him defensively at some point? If that's the thing that works, that option is on the table. And the more options you have on the table in this game, the more valuable you are to a program. We just talked about him. Kendall Smith put a lot of options on the table for 5 years at Illinois, and he's really become a valuable guy. And I'm not saying that's the comparison, but I'm just saying the more doors you have open, the better.
Yeah, I mean, if you envision the running back room, if you want to do this for the next couple of years, Chase Brown's getting NFL looks. Okay. Like he's got a late round grade on him right now. Or at least the potential to be a late round guy. Mike Epstein, probably another year, given that he was considering, like, is he going to play football still? Probably another year for him. Chase Hayden's got 2 years of eligibility. We'll see if he uses both of those. I don't know if he's an NFL guy, but he's had injuries. He's a graduate student. So we'll see with Chase Hayden, but those guys are really good and obviously short-term options. Then Reggie Love, this staff is really high on. Former top 500 prospect, saw really great things in the spring game. And he was still coming back from a foot injury as a high school senior. So Reggie with another year, he's just a redshirt freshman. He's going to be a guy they envision as a bell cow guy. They think Aiden can be that as well. They could line Aiden up in the slot at times as well. Aiden said that they've talked to him about that, but I think if you're talking about who's going to get the most carries in future years, I think Reggie Love and Aiden Lofter are kind of those versatile, do everything backs. While Nick Fidonzo's got abilities, he's got size and speed as well, but we just haven't seen anything from him yet. But then you got these two big backs who are really intriguing with Josh McCray, who's a really good receiver, but they already list him at 6'1", 240, Joey, on the official Illinois roster. And you saw Jordan Anderson up close. And I texted somebody in the Illinois program when I saw him up close in the spring, and I said, this guy is a freak. He's 6'3", 225, absolutely ripped. Looks like a sophomore in college already, and he's a really good running back. He's a man amongst boys at the high school level. Obviously, he'll have some things he's got to work on at the next level, but that's a great group of backs where it's versatile. You got two guys who can do a little bit of everything, more the traditional running backs. And then you got these two big dudes who can do something different. I think that's going to be a strength of this team for the future.
And look, I mean, they've not hidden behind what they want to do offensively, and that includes running the football and running it effectively. So if you're going to be loaded at a position for the next 3, 4, 5 years, that's a pretty good one to be loaded at in this system, and keep churning in players and keep finding guys to get handoffs to. I just keep coming back, Jeremy, to how substantial this win is for Bret. And again, usually when we say that, it's not like, oh my gosh, they got Jared Beatty was a substantial win, because that is a pretty serious position of need moving forward. This is like a substantial, and also he's a good football player in the state of Illinois with Power 5 offers.
High ceiling prospect, right? Like just a great.
He's not just a win because of the position he plays. He's a win for a lot of reasons. But it's for everything you said, Jeremy. It's this. When I was in Decatur, I kind of covered Milliken on the surface a little bit, kind of see what they're doing. And I thought some programs could have recruited better locally, because one, they're good, basketball, football, baseball players. But the more people who live within like an hour, the more people who are coming to these games.
Yeah.
These are butts in the seat. And if the butts in the seat are watching somebody who's good at football and you have that allegiance within an hour, that's a win-win-win, right? And then, oh, by the way, you beat out Iowa, and not a lot of Illinois fans are gonna, lose any sleep over that tonight. So there's just so many layers to this that, and really, you're right. This is one of the first like Power 5 dog fights that we've seen Bret Bielema
head to head against a big, and you have to have those, and you got to have them early, right? Like I understand, like if Bielema's going to lose, Austin Brown, or he's going to lose on a Deuce McGuire or things like that, but you got to win some of those too, just to show you can recruit, right? Like I think it's a telltale sign of recruiting, and I think Lovey showed that with Ricky, and he showed that with Kendrick. I thought those were, and Larray, I thought those were big wins for him. It's just he didn't sustain that, or didn't care to sustain that in state. I think Bret's going to sustain that. And I think he and his staff with more time could be even more dangerous. And I think that's what's exciting when especially when you're beating teams that you emulate to be. Illinois emulates to be Iowa. They emulate to be Wisconsin or Michigan State. And you're beating some of these programs for some of those teams. You'd like to land some defenders coming up, some more defenders to go along with Jared Beatty and Malachi Hood, 2 in-state kids, and that'll be next in the class. But, we're still waiting to see Sean Miller at the end of this week. Can Illinois get a top 500 wide receiver to add to this, pretty good offensive, class that you've put together that's filled a lot of needs? And that's what this class has done. I think it's really showed you like what they want to do offensively so far. It's pro style quarterback. It's big physical road grader offensive lineman with a nasty attitude. It's tight ends on tight ends, including walk-ons, right? They got that in the last part of the last class. And then wide receivers, you got one slot, but you got 2 lanky, long options who can stretch the field. And Illinois has not had a lot of those in recent years. So, and the big backs, right? These are really good running backs that they've added from in-state. So I think we're starting to see what Bielema gets, and none of it's surprising. But I think they're good fits.
And I think what is also, I keep coming back to, especially when you look at Iowa that can sell, not a very deep running back room moving forward, that can sell all of these mountains of wins they've had, the bowl games, the success, all of this. Bret Bielema and his coaching staff have nothing more to sell right now, literally nothing more than hope and their personality. That's it. Seriously, they haven't played a football game, so they've not won a football game. They might be fighting uphill over the history of what Illinois has been, and maybe some gaps in relationships, especially with some of these in-staters. And I mean, Bret Bielema and his coaching staff, for the most part, a couple of guys who have been around, have known these kids for 7 months and have known their families for 7 months. So that, to me, it's like, if you're a fan and you're looking at this, it's like, okay, they're doing pretty well in the first year. And look, first years always do, maybe they shouldn't say always, they historically do pretty well as this pitch of hope and a turn to corner and a fresh start and all of this. But this is a pretty good, and again, you could say the same for Lovey in 2017. This is a pretty good start for selling hope and not much more. And then when you zoom in on individual recruitments, you fought against a lot of things to beat Iowa, man. And you did it. And I think he should get credit for how he's built this staff, or this recruiting class, particularly in state. Get the guys early that you're going to get, take them early, and then expand your number of recruiters, right? And they've done a good job of making sure these recruits, these committed kids, are connected to branch out that network and make a larger net to try to bring in some of these guys. That's a good call, because I think some of these kids you could look at and say, could they have gotten them later in the class? I think that's a fair thing to say, but the plan was not to do that, and it's worked out, is the way they've used some of these commits to go ahead and really push the gas on some of these other guys.
You're right. They could have waited on Clayton Leonard. They could have waited on Henry Boyer. They could have waited on Jordan Anderson, right? Hank Beatty, maybe not. I don't know, but like you could have waited on some of those guys. But they felt good about their convictions with them, right? And those guys have helped recruit, like Clayton Leonard and Hank Beatty. Like Hank knows Aiden pretty well, and I think that helped. Like Bryce Barnes obviously helped being from Gibson City, but those guys helped in that recruitment. And You also ran the risk of Jordan Anderson going to some camp and some school being like, why doesn't this guy have Power 5 offer? Which I kept saying when I saw him. I'm like, how does this guy not
oil tank? Yeah.
how does this guy not have offers? Or Henry Boyer going to some camp and they put him at left tackle and go, man, that kid's got some potential. But Illinois said, no, we want you as a jumbo tight end right now. We like you there, and then maybe eventually you can be an offensive lineman. But no, we want you now. So I think that was really smart. If those guys work out, we'll see. But it certainly helped with the recruiting pitch, and it might got it, especially with the year we had, Joey. Maybe those guys, if they would have had a normal year of being out junior year camps, having a full season, I think Illinois took advantage of that as well. Some guys going on the radar.
I talked with Malachi Hood on Monday, and I think he's a guy. He said there was some cursory interest from other Power 5 programs, and it was very similar. Yeah, we'd love to see you here. We'd love to get you here. And Illinois got him to campus, literally the first possible day they could have. And then the next thing you know, I think it was 5 days later at most, he committed. And that's, again, it's if you trust your convictions. I think that's what we're seeing with this staff is this is what we believe. This is what this fits what we're after. We don't need to overthink this thing, right? I mean, if this is what we know, Ashton Hollins, they saw him. That's what they know. Like, hey, this is it. We believe in this. You don't need to see, is anyone else going to jump on? Aren't they? Will they? Make your move and go for it and keep plunging forward. So we'll see if that continues in the next class. But to me, that's a trend to this class is them believing in what they see.
Yeah. And again, you got to wait a couple of years to evaluate it all. But I think the actual recruiting game they're playing is pretty impressive. I think it's obviously good. They got to get more headliners. And I think that's Austin Brown. They would love that. We'll see if they can get a guy like Stella Brown or Anthony Brown or Sean Miller, Ryan Bear, Patrick Kudus. But they're in those battles, man. And if you win a couple of them, you feel pretty darn good about this recruiting class. Do you think Bret Bielema was celebrating that one when he found out Saturday? Over his alma mater?
I'm guessing probably he's probably on vacation somewhere. If I had to guess, they're wrapping up vacations here, or they're in the process of wrapping them up. Before I realized when this came in, I thought, I wonder if these guys are just like hanging out, watching WCIA, seeing how this is going to work, or if they're gone, like live streaming it. Because for a while, I mean, I guess you were like the only one outside of the building on the face of the earth who knew that this was going to happen.
Might have known. An inkling.
For a while, yeah, maybe, yeah. For a while, it was like, I don't, the reports were like, we don't know if he's told anybody. Like, there was just no smoke. That was like Illinois third assistant quiet for a little bit, right? And so then I was like, okay, I wonder how this is going to happen. And I would have loved to see them all in some room, like huddled around a TV trying to watch this. But yeah, I would imagine he celebrated. I bet he was pretty happy about that one. And I do wonder because him and Kurt go back so far. I do wonder if there was any playful banter. I would think not. It would probably seem a little too fresh to go.
I always had a tough run here, which is weird, right? I know the allegations happened last year, right? Like, but it didn't affect their 21 class. Now I know they had a bunch of those guys already committed by that point, but their 21 class was phenomenal, and they followed up with a really great year. So yeah, they're struggling a bit, and Bielema's got 2 wins against Iowa. That's pretty big. Like, that's got to be annoying. It's got to be annoying if you're Iowa or an Iowa fan. It's like Illinois, like we got to worry about them now, and I think that's a great sign. And again, we can go back to Lovey. Iowa lost Kendrick Green to Lovey, and they just weren't able to sustain it. The key is sustaining it moving forward. All right, Joe, when we come back, let's take a quick break and talk about the literal biggest topic on Illinois campus and Illinois athletics, and that's Kofi Coburn. That's next on the Illini Inquirer podcast. All right, Illinois gets a top 100 point guard, Joey, this week, and it's not the biggest news. Jaden Epps, what a great get for Chester Frazier and Brad Underwood, and I wrote about it. Like, what a great kind of cycle of guards they're going through in the Brad Underwood era, which certainly wasn't the case in especially the John Gross era, but Bruce Weber towards the end wasn't great either. But now Kofi Coburn is announcing his decision. What a wild Wednesday it was there, with every Kentucky insider and reporter leaking out that it will not be Kentucky and that they don't want him. I don't know how true that is, but Kentucky doesn't need him. I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe is a great center, and I know they're going after Duren, the top prospect in 2022, is going to reclassify who's a center. But certainly good news for Illinois. Then Florida State comes up involved here, Joey. But certainly, like, that would be really weird. Let's just get at, like, Florida State's a great program. Leonard Hamilton is developing lottery pick after lottery pick who are great in the NBA. So I get the pull. It's a great program. It deserves everyone's respect, but it kind of came out of nowhere. And certainly reading all the tea leaves, it feels like Illinois is in a really good place, which is one heck of a way, if that happens, Joey, to wrap up this offseason, that Illinois might be in a better place than anyone even envisioned going into it.
If it's Florida State, let's get this out of the way. Brad is going to have to answer some really, I mean, we're going to have to get some Brad, Kofi, and I wouldn't say that's Brad's fault, but that was like, what's the tie there other than they just pump out NBA guys, left and right.
It just doesn't make sense. I'll be honest with you. Like, it just, are you making more NIL at Florida State? It's really hard to believe. I understand their football program is great. Their basketball program their basketball program has been better than their football program. So people should pay attention more in Tallahassee. They're a great basketball program, but it's like, I don't buy that. I could at Kentucky, right? Because they're way more interested in their basketball program. Like, people should probably pay more attention to their football program because Mark Stoops has done a great job at Kentucky, but I don't buy that. Basketball fit, maybe. But for me, it's like, you have a great thing at Illinois. You have a fan base that adores you. You've had a bunch of success. I know you're not going to have your guy Orlando Antigua there, but he's not at Florida State, right? You got Jeff Alexander, who you know really well. You got Brad Underwood, who you know really well. You have a really good roster around you. You have a team that's going to still play through you. And I think your brand is biggest here. And I think long-term legacy matters, man. Like, I talked to Kendall Gill about it. Like, you come back to Illinois, if you leave Illinois for Florida State for a year, like, it's just not going to be the same. Like, you're not going to come back to Illinois. Right. And I think that stuff matters, man. I really do. Like, whether it's job opportunities or just feeling good, coming back to a place you can call home, a place you'll forever be a legend. Like, to me, that stuff matters. But on top of it, I think it's the best basketball fit. And I think it's the best brand NIL fit.
Is there going to be a point guard who's going to let you eat as much as Andre Curbelo plan? I mean, I could probably comfortably say plans to let you eat because the guy passes the ball with so much ease and so much. He loves doing it, man. He loves doing it. And if the target's a 7-footer, so man, we'll see, right? Like, it feels like Friday is still a lifetime away, and it also feels like this has been going on for like 3 months. I'm looking; it is 14 days into this transfer portal Kofi Coburn experience. And it feels like forever because it's so outside of NIL.
Okay, can I throw the theory out there? Can I throw the theory? Like, do you think he did this just to, like, market himself? Which genius. Genius if he did it. He's college basketball's biggest transfer. Kentucky's interested. People are talking, like, Kofi Coburn outside of NIL.
It's the biggest news in college basketball.
The biggest college basketball news of the last couple of weeks. He's got Kentucky talking. He's got millions of people talking about Florida State fans, whoever they are, the basketball fans. Like, they are talking about him right now. Like, hey, can we surprise college basketball and be a title contender next year? And then Illinois fans are, they'll appreciate him a little bit more. And like, I'll say this, like, if he comes back, one, he's going to notch himself as probably the best big man ever in Illinois and notch himself in the pantheon of Illini. But, like, if he comes back, people are going to buy everything just because they're so appreciative of the thought of losing him. And 2 days ago, everyone would be like, oh, he's gone. He's gone. And now he comes back, like, whatever t-shirt you want to throw out there, whatever product he's pitching, man, I think Illinois fans are going to buy up everything. Just be like, thank you.
I hope, and I honestly thought about trying to put some feelers out to some companies that produce t-shirts and say, I won't say anything until Friday, but do you have something? If I'm Kofi, I have something in the works, and I drop a link like, I'm going here, boom, buy it, and just watch it go. Watch those shopping carts get full because people would do it. And for as much stress as fans have gone under and as much Frustration, I guess, just as I think a lot of the frustration, I wouldn't say it's necessarily rooted in Kofi as much as it is just the broad scale changes of college basketball, right? The transfer portal, NIL, how does it all work? How do they work together? I think that's all gone. Friday, the tweet is Illinois. I think it's
Yeah, because I mean, he's drummed up drama, right? He certainly has drummed up drama and has taken Illinois fans for a roller coaster of emotions, right? So, I've had people text me being like, "Just announce your school," right? But like, it's a business, man. Like, it is really a business now. Like, and I think for a lot of these high school kids, it's a lot of fun. You see less transfers play this kind of game, but now in the day of NIL, he's getting so much copy written about him, so much publicity. That's not a bad thing for him.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I hope if it is Illinois, I hope that Kofi is somewhere in the greater Champaign area and on Friday can name his price to go into anywhere down on Green Street and sign autographs for an hour and just watch the money flow in, and then do it again on Saturday and on Sunday and on Monday and until you've hit the whole block.
Well, I think you could do $50 a pop on Friday, right?
I think there could be on Friday $50 was a little low.
Well, all right. I'm trying. It's a college crowd, man. Like $100, it'd be like, man, we could have one heck of a night at Cam's here, right? So I don't know. Or the Red Lion, I think they call it.
Put 75 to get in. You give Kofi a hearty cut, maybe say $75 cover charge. Kofi's there. You cut him 60 of those 75, and you just watch the money move in, man. Because there'd be no better place to be in Champaign-Urbana than the building Kofi's in on Friday night.
I think your Illinois law though is going to keep him from a bar, right?
Oh shoot.
He's 21 though. Why not?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're right. Again, we're assuming, that's under the impression if it is Illinois, that would be the plan. Is there man, I just moved here. I should know. Go to Marianne's, man. Chill out of Marianne's.
Go anywhere.
Go anywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter at all. I just hope he gets back to, if it is Illinois, I hope he gets back to campus very quickly because there will be some very immediate opportunities literally anywhere. I would think.
If it was Florida State, I would just be like, okay. Oh, okay, cool. Like good luck. I don't think it'd sting as much as Kentucky, but it'd be weirder to me. Okay. Like Kentucky makes more sense. If you're going to go somewhere, go to the blue blood. But it just wouldn't make any sense to me. And everyone seems to think it's going to be Illinois. So, but if it is, man, like I said it earlier, and I know I was cramming a lot of thoughts into one statement there, but if he comes back, obviously they're a top 15 preseason team, which is a top 4 seed, right, in the NCAA tournament. They are a Big Ten title contender. Kofi Coburn is going to be, after one more year, is going to be top 10 scorer or top 15 scorer of all time, top 5 rebounder, top 10 block shots guy. It'd be amazing for Illinois basketball that 3 years in a row, Joey, you'd be like a top 20 team. 3 years in a row, be a Big Ten title contender. And once you get to the NCAA tournament, you're going to be in the mix. You're one of those teams that could make a run to the Final Four. I thought they could have been that 2 years ago. We didn't get that tournament last year. Obviously ended in huge disappointment. But Kofi, you end this chaotic offseason. If you end it with Kofi Coburn, Alfonso Plummer, Omar Payne, added to a group that returns Trent Frazier and DeMonte Williams for a 5th year. Andre Curbelo is back. Austin Hutcherson might be healthy. You add Coleman Hawkins another year. Like Jacob Grandison is back as a starter, and he might not even start. Like
3 top 100 freshmen.
And 3 top 100 freshmen, and you've got 2 top 100 players in the class 2022 in the last couple of weeks. I know this was the weirdest, most chaotic, frustrating at times, but you ended up in a better place, in my opinion. If Kofi comes back, you've ended up in a better place than I thought you would be at the beginning. If you would have had Orlando Antigua, Stephen Gentry, and Chin Coleman still here. Like I thought Kofi was going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to the NBA, or I'm just going to try and go pro. And I thought, I didn't think Adam Miller was going to transfer, but I didn't think they'd have 2 top 100 guards on board already in this class. So what a way to end it. Like at the end of all of that. And I understand all of the emotions that have gone into it. You're in a great place. a great place and even a better place than I thought you'd be.
If I could go back and tell you that when the Chin Coleman Orlando Antigua press release officially came out, which, obviously there had been buzz long before that, and then the Stephen Gentry buzz was kind of brewing at that point. If I could tell you right then, hey, listen, it's going to get a little murky moving forward. I can't remember if Adam Miller was already in the portal at that time.
Yeah, he was.
So that was gone. Frankly, that's a really tough loss, I think. I mean, he started every game.
I said it when he transferred. I think he's gonna be great. I think he's gonna be a really good player at LSU. And the more you get away from it, the more you can understand, because Curbelo is so good that he wants the ball in his hands, right? I don't think he's a point guard, and I think he could have worked with Curbelo just fine. So that didn't make sense to me because he knew what he was signing up for here at Illinois, but maybe he thought after a year it was different. I think he could have been great here, and I think he was going to be great here. So he was on Team USA. He's looked really good, and I think he's going to be really good for LSU. So, yes, I still consider that a loss, but to get Trent Frazier and Alfonso Point, I mean, remember, we thought Trent Frazier was going to be gone. Or is DeMonte Williams coming back? We didn't know those things at that time, and end up with Plummer, Williams, Frazier all back, along with Curbelo. That's a heck of a rebound, and now you could have a center duo of Omar Payne and Kofi Coburn. Come on now.
That's what I'm saying. If I were to tell you on that day of the press release that all of this was going to happen, that Kofi was going to enter the portal. Well, first of all, the Kofi was going to withdraw from the draft. I mean, it's just been so many roller coasters. Like he's not going to withdraw, and then he's in the portal, then he withdraws. Like the timeline has been very disjointed. But if I were to tell you then, like, okay, look, this is what the next few months are going to be like. You are not going to enjoy yourselves as fans. Let's just be honest. It's going to be a tough run of it here. But at the end, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. People would have very reluctantly been like, you know what? All right.
I'm trying to make a movie comp of what this offseason has been like and say, hey, everything's great. And then what? Like we thought everything was awesome. And then you just go through all of these twists and turns. And at the end of it, hey, kind of exactly where I wanted to be.
And then Vince Vaughn punches out Owen Wilson's lover's wife in Wedding Crashers, and it's all back. So yeah, man, it's not over. It's not over. We're recording this on Wednesday. Yeah. It is not over, but what a way to rebrand. And you know what? Brad has done stuff that deserves criticism. Sometimes he's a little too effusive, I think, in his praise of players we've not seen. There's things you can point to things and be like, that can be done differently. But the guy adjusted to this, man. He adjusted on the fly to an upside down world of college athletics. And literally, like, it wasn't obviously Adam Miller had impacted, but this is like around his star, around like the guy who, along with Curbelo, we're going to have this whole operation here kind of hinging on them. And he's adjusted. And I'm sure it's not been very pleasant at times. I'm sure it's been exhausting at times. But if at the end of the day, if he goes to bed Friday night and his center's Kofi Coburn and his point guard's Andre Curbelo and Trent's back and DeMonte is back and all these pieces that you mentioned are there, good for him for swinging through the punches and getting up and for making it work. And time after time, all while Chester Frazier, him, Jeff Alexander, keep building and just keep stacking it up. Good for him if they do it.
Yeah, when I saw him Monday at the Kendall Gillis golf outing to Sport Cunningham Children's Home, which is always great, and I saw him and I said, "How's your summer going?" He goes, "What's that?" It's been a trying summer, to say the least, for Brad Underwood. He goes on vacation with his wife. And he told me he had like an hour or two with her before he got the call about Orlando, that he was going to Kentucky. And, obviously there was a process there and they were going back and forth to see if they could keep him. And then Chin happens a couple of days later. Right. And Stephen Gentry, I think they knew that was in the works for a long time. So that didn't surprise him quite as much. But then you had, this Kofi thing to it. And he said it before. He's a tough SOB, man. He's tough. And I think there's a lot of coaches out there who aren't happy about losing control. They don't have control anymore. This is more like the NBA. This is a player-driven league / association now, college basketball. and it is mirroring the NBA, and whether you adjust to that or not is whether you're going to succeed. And there's going to be more adjustments to it, I think, both for players and for coaches. For coaches, are you going to recruit as many freshmen anymore? I think Brad still believes in his culture. He still believes that, hey, we get kids to buy into this, and they see it, and they reap the rewards of it. They'll stick with us. But you can't help but not be skeptical, because why would you recruit a freshman? Some coaches think that half of them or more are just going to end up in the transfer portal within a year. If they score 2 points or 3 points their freshman year, they'll be gone. If they score 10, they'll be in the NBA, or they'll transfer up a program or something like that. So it's finding that sweet spot, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. But Brad is adjusting to it, is my overall point. Like, he's gone to the transfer portal. He's found guys who can fit him. With Kofi, if he wins that, the NIL thing seems to work. The culture seems to work. The school seems to work. His hires would seem to have helped that. I think Chester's obviously involved here, but Jeff Alexander is really involved with Kofi Coburn. So we'd have to give him a lot of credit here too, because Jeff and Kofi have a good relationship. Jeff has played a bigger role, I think, in the program. At least Brad has told us that than some people would probably believe. So if you get through all of this, man, and you have this roster with Kofi Coburn in the middle of it and all those other pieces, that's a heck of an offseason for Brad Underwood to go through and to come out with that.
You might be able to seek a vacation, man, right? Like, you might be able to rebound and go.
He said he got a 1 week window. He's got a 1 week window to possibly do it. He's going to Vegas on a boys trip, he said, for summer league, because I will be out there, and we'll see if a guy like Andres Feliz could be out there. We'll see, but he signed a 2-year deal, so probably not. But some Illini guys will be out there, and so he'll get away for that. But maybe his family can get vacation too.
What I envision Brad at some, where they played the match in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming? Wasn't it Wyoming or Montana, one of the two? Just nowhere but a beautiful golf course. I don't know if Brad's going there. That's a place I can see Brad. Like, dude, just leave me alone. Let me golf.
He's a big golfer. He's a big golfer. He said he's barely played this summer.
Oh, yeah. Get him out there. Let him have a couple glasses of wine. No cell phone service is the preferred here. And just let him have a week, man, because after this offseason, you deserve it. We'll see. A lot of ball game left.
Joey Wagner. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, man.